God, for real. Why in the world? Okay, God, so like what was going through your mind? Can you tell a brother, like, I just can't wrap my mind around, I don't get that. How does that all work? The Bible says in Deuteronomy 29:29, the secret things belong to the Lord our God, but the things that are revealed belong to us and to our children forever, that we may do all the words of this law. Essentially what this verse says is that, you know what? There's certain things that God has said, I'm going to show it to you. I'm going to reveal it to you. You have the liberty to go and figure it out and search it out and try to understand it. But then there's some other things that I have reserved that are only going to be for me to understand, i.e. the secret things. So what I want to do is I want to let you in on some questions that I've been thinking about that I want to ask God one day whenever I get to heaven, because these questions have been stumping me for as long as I can remember. And by the way, if you have additional questions that I'm not asking in this video, then I want to encourage you to put those questions in the comment section, because they very well may be questions that I want to ask God whenever I get to heaven too. And you're going to want to stick around, because I'm going to go from number 7 all the way to my top question. And I've got a bonus question that I've been dying, no pun intended, to ask God whenever I get to heaven, but that'll be a little bit later on in this video. Okay, God, so like out of all the denominations that are in the world today, which one has the closest theology? I mean, you got Baptist, you got Reformed, you got Pentecostal, you got Charismatic, you got Methodist, you got Catholic, you got all these different denominations. And I mean, I know it doesn't really matter now because I'm in heaven and we're hanging out for all eternity, but I'm just curious to know, because down here on earth, people are always fussing and fighting, and they're always arguing about this doctrine or that doctrine or whatnot. So can you tell a brother, like, now that we're up here and it don't matter anymore, what denomination was actually the closest as it relates to theological beliefs? Okay, God, so this one is one that people have been arguing about throughout the history of Christianity. I need you to put it to rest for me. I'm in heaven now, so just break it down. Check this out. What is the proper harmony and balance between man's free will and God's sovereignty? I mean, God, you have to admit that in the Bible, it's pretty confusing, because you have some verses like John 3:16, where it says, you know what? Hey, whosoever will, let him come. Speaking of salvation, sounds like it's an open ticket for anybody who wants to be saved. They can just come and they can place their faith in Christ. But then God, in Ephesians chapter 1, verse 3, it talks about that you have chosen certain people before the foundation of the world. So that verse seems to suggest that you've marked out some people for salvation. And if you're not one of the chosen people, then there's really no chance for you to be saved, because you are not one of the elect. So God, I'll be honest with you, that has always confused me. I know which way I lean more, but you need to break that one down for me. Okay, now this question, God, is one that I'm gonna be straight up honest with you. I have been wondering this, and since I was like a little boy, maybe 5 or 6 years old, whenever I first got the concept of who God was and who you were. My question is this: how were you just quote unquote there at the beginning, even though I guess there isn't really a beginning or an end with you, because you were just always there? But from our perspective, everything that we see in this world had a beginning, or it had a cause, or something created it. But with you, there is no cause. You are the uncaused cause. There is no beginning. There is no ending, and no one created you. But that, I just can't wrap my mind around the fact that if I keep going back and back and back and back, how is it that you were just there? Like, that doesn't make any sense to me, that somehow you were just there. Like, can you help me understand that? That doesn't compute with me. Okay, God, so I think I understand this next one, but I want you to break it down for me. Will we actually have free will in heaven? Now, the reason why I'm asking this is because whenever Adam and Eve were in the garden, it was a perfect environment, right? Like, there was no sin nature, and the angels were perfectly created and all this. And then they were also created with free will. And so there was this forbidden fruit in the middle of the garden, and they had the opportunity to exercise free will. And God, you know what happened when Adam and Eve ate of the forbidden fruit. All hell broke loose. No pun intended, right? And we got all the problems. So my question is it going to be possible whenever we get to heaven to repeat all this stuff all over again? Because I don't know about you, but I don't want to go through this again. And I'm sure no human being who is ever born or whoever will be born is going to ever want to repeat that. So is this going to be a thing that we're going to have to deal with again in heaven, where you put something somewhere and we have to exercise some sort of decision not to choose to indulge in it? And if we do, we start the whole thing over again. Like, can you really break that down for me? Okay, so God, this next one is kind of like a personal one with me. I'm just going to be honest with you. And so, like, I want to know how I could have better represented you on earth. So, like, I mean, I know that, it might take a little bit of time, but after all, we're here in heaven and we have all the time in the world because, I mean, we're here for all eternity. So can you point out the times in my life where I could have been a better witness? I could have stood for you better. I could have gotten more rewards because, I'm not trying to like compete or compare, but like, it would have been nice to get some more rewards and have some more things up in heaven, but I'm not complaining. I'm happy with what I got, right? But can you just tell me, just bring back some things in my memory, in my mind, where times where I know I could have represented you better so that I would have had a better understanding of what you expected out of me whenever I was on earth. All right, God. So this one is one that I'll be honest, I just have never really understood how it all works. But like, how can we really experience true joy here in heaven when we know some of our loved ones that we cared about so deeply are suffering and experiencing eternal torment? Like, first of all, how can you, as God who created these people, how can you have some sort of, joy in being the creator and watching your creation suffer in hell? But also, like, how can we expect to have this, heavenly party, if you will, to where we're having such a good time and we're celebrating, but we know our uncle or our aunt or our friends or our coworkers who didn't place their faith in you, they are literally suffering for all eternity. Like, I don't get that. Like, are we just not supposed to think about them? Are we not going to remember them anymore? Or like, how does that all work? All right, guys. So I know I've taken up enough of your time, but the last question that I really have always wondered the answer to is this. How did you decide who dies young and who dies old? I mean, like, what was the criteria, right? Like, I mean, I don't get that. Like, some people seem to disobey you quite a bit and they lived till they were 80, 90 years old. Then you have some people who seem like, they were doing the right thing, and then they got a disease or something and they died at an early age or whatever. Or you see children that have like these terminal cancers and things like that. And they're 8 years old and they die, or 10 years old or 11 years old and they die. And I'm just wondering, like, from your perspective as God, how did you determine that this person was going to live longer and this person wasn't? I get the fact that you're the giver of life, and if you gave life, you can take life. Like, I get that. I get what the scriptures say, but like, what was going through your mind, your heavenly divine mind, whenever you decide that this person is going to be taken away from us before we were ready for them to go, versus somebody else who had the opportunity to live and enjoy a full life? Okay, so I hope you've enjoyed these 7 questions that I personally have for God. But when I get to heaven, I do have one bonus question that I really need God to answer for me, and this is what it is. Okay, so guys, so now that we're here and you've told me that I can ask you anything, this might be one that's kind of funny, I admit it, but I gotta ask you, why on God's earth, no pun intended, did you create roaches? Like, why did you create roaches? Like, what purpose did they serve in your creation? What purpose do they serve? Like, they're not beautiful. They get on your nerves. People want to smash them and step on them and throw them away. Like, can you tell me what was going through your mind, your theological divine mind when you said, I'm going to create roaches, right? I need you to break that one down for me. All right, y'all. So I know that was just all in satire and jest, but it brings up the point that there are a lot of things that we may have questions about that we may not get answers to until we get to heaven. And so it's important for us to hold a good balance and a healthy balance and say, you know what, God, these are the things that you've revealed, as Deuteronomy 29:29 says, so I'll look further into them. And then there's some other things, God, that you said they're secrets, and they're things that we're not going to have the full understanding until we get to heaven. So we need to make sure we always hold those two things in tension. So I'd love to hear your thoughts. What are some questions that you might have for God, whether personally or theologically? Let me know in the comments section below, and let's talk about it. If you found this video helpful in any way, feel free to share it with a friend. Also, if you haven't done so already, I would love it if you would subscribe. Check out some of the other videos on this channel. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time on The Beat.